Toph Beifong was the blind earthbending master who trained the Avatar, invented metalbending, and helped to defeat the Fire Lord all before the age of 13. Now let's dive into our next chapter. This is the complete timeline of Toph after the 100-Year War. Luckily for the Four Nations, the reign of Ozai as the Phoenix King was brief.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to offend you, Phoenix King of getting his butt whooped.
After a long and hard-fought journey, Team Avatar finally had a little R&R.
Well, I think you all look perfect.
It was only a short time later, though, that Toph noticed something strange when she walked around in public. Her space metal bracelet would move around certain people. Eventually, Toph figured out these people were tapping into a rare and previously unknown ability. They were metalbenders. Excited at the prospect of teaching a whole new bending form, Toph recruited her first 3 students to the Beifong Metalbending Academy: Ho-Tun, Panga, and the Dark One. One day while training, the students noticed a commotion at the nearby city of Yu Dao. Toph told them to get back to work, but stopped herself when she heard the sound of Appa flying overhead. If Team Avatar was nearby, there was likely something wrong, so Toph took the fast route and Earth launched herself into the sky. After a happy reunion, Toph learned Aang was on his way to Yu Dao to ease tensions between the recently crowned Fire Lord Zuko and the Harmony Restoration movement. Even though it was Earth Kingdom land, many Fire Nation citizens still called it home, and they were willing to fight to stay there. Unfortunately, they did just that. Aang and Zuko even came to blows, each refusing to back down until Katara stepped in. The two of them calmed down and agreed to meet later with the Earth King. Hopefully, it would be peaceful. In the meantime, Toph returned to her school to check on her students, but found the 3 of them kicked to the curb. A gang of firebending students and their master had taken over her school, claiming it was their dojo first. Toph tried to kick them out, but the fight was destroying the building in the process. Luckily, they decided on a compromise with a rematch in 3 days for control of the academy. The Firebenders versus Ho-Tun, Panga, and the Dark One. The odds didn't look good. It was, however, the perfect time for substitute instructor Sokka to step in and inspire the students to hone their skills together as Team Beifong. They struggled at first, but soon enough, Toph students started to believe in themselves, and they bent their way to victory. The Metalbending Academy was finally back to its rightful owner, and Toph couldn't have been more proud. Shortly after, when Aang and Zuko met again, it went the opposite of peaceful, and a full-on battle broke out. At one point, Toph and Suki found themselves pinned down by Fire Nation soldiers. They were nearly overwhelmed until a new and improved Team Beifong stepped in and turned the fight in their favor. At the battle's conclusion, Aang trusted himself to avoid hurting Zuko, and even saved his life in the Avatar state after he nearly fell to his death. In the end, the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation colonists learned how to live together in harmony, and many more promising students began to enroll at Toph's academy. About a year later, Toph joined Aang on a trip to a festival honoring Avatar Yang Chen. The air acolyte ceremonies reminded Toph of her strict upbringing, and for the most part, she refused to participate. When Team Avatar made it to the new industrial city of Fishtown, however, Toph's spirits were lifted. Even through her usual rock-hard exterior, Toph couldn't hide an obvious crush on a brilliant young engineer named Satoru. The two quickly hit it off and formed a partnership. Toph's students would provide their metalbending skills, and Satoru's company would sponsor a new building for her school. The deal was, of course, too good to be true. As Toph walked further in the refinery, she discovered her father, Lao Beifong, was a co-owner. The two had been estranged since Toph ran away from home, and Lao refused to admit that he was her father. He even threw her off the property. Toph, nevertheless, was determined to make amends. She returned to the refinery to confront her father and also tried to let him know his mining operation was unsafe. Toph took him down to show him herself, but the mine ended up collapsing on top of them. It was a close call, but Toph was of course strong enough to hold the weight, and Lao finally saw his daughter for the hero she was. Toph's students arrived to save the day once again, and understandably, their teacher collapsed from total exhaustion afterwards. It wasn't long, though, before an angry spirit named General Old Iron awoke and started to attack the refinery. Quickly recovering, Toph and her students jumped in the fight. Together, they banded with Team Avatar and sent the spirit on its way. There was a reason to celebrate in Yu Dao once again, and with the support of her father, Toph and Satoru helped to turn Earth and Fire Refinery into a bustling new business. In just a few months, Toph's Metalbending Academy was thriving with upgraded facilities and a whole new class of students. Ho-Tun, Panga, and the Dark One were also now good enough metalbenders that they taught all the beginners on their own. The school had basically begun to run itself, and Toph was bored out of her mind. Sokka and Suki arrived one day to visit the school, and to break up the monotony, they took her to a concert. And it was with everyone's favorite traveling band, Chong and Trustfully in Love. Understandably, Toph bailed on the show. As she walked back to her school enjoying the quiet, Toph felt something new with her seismic sense. It was an unfamiliar type of bending, and it brought her to an underground battle in an abandoned warehouse. Reminded of her days as the blind bandit, Toph was totally enthralled. There was a fighter in the ring named Sun who wasn't a firebender, but could seemingly melt the earth below his feet. He was a lavabender. The only problem was that Sun hadn't learned to control it. In a later battle, Sun was nearly down for the count when he shocked the entire crowd, spraying a wall of lava toward his opponent. No one had ever seen anything like it before, and as the building began to topple, everyone fled. Fortunately, Team Beifong was close by to save the day again. Sun tried to run away in the chaos, but Toph easily caught up to him. The idea of innovating a whole new form of earthbending reinvigorated Toph's passion, and by the next day, she had a new student and lavabending was permanently added to the curriculum. Now that Toph's academy ran like clockwork, she was able to get away from time to time to act as a representative for Earth and Fire Industries. One of her first assignments brought her back with Team Avatar and into business with the Southern Water Tribe. Sokka and Katara were thrilled to see her again, and it was just in time before a new threat arrived. A radical Southern Water Tribe warrior named Gilok was leading an uprising spearheaded by giant drills. Team Avatar easily held Gilok's forces back, but the conflict evolved into a hostage situation at the Bridge of No Return. Team Beifong jumped into action once again, this time assisted by Sokka's inventive battle strategy, metal armor to prevent chi blocking. With his army defeated, Gilok still refused to surrender and tried to take as many people with him as possible. He fell to his death right then and there, but Aang and Katara sprang into action. After some daring rescues, Team Avatar welcomed a few new members to the group that night and remained safe, sound, and ready to feast another day. Almost 2 years after the 100-Year War, a small town around Earth and Fire Refinery had rapidly expanded into a small city called Fishtown. When Team Avatar came to visit, they hardly recognized the place. They also found themselves stuck in the middle of a bending supremacist movement when Toph was nearly blown up in an attack. She managed to save herself with some quick metal bending, and later, with some clever disguises, Toph helped to infiltrate an underground meeting of the supremacists. The element of surprise was blown when Toph lost her patience with their leader Li Ling and a fight broke out. Toph launched a barrage of rocks toward Li Ling, but was caught off guard by the sheer power of her daughter Ya Ling's counterattack. For the first time, Toph was battling a young earthbender who could go toe-to-toe against her. While their fight ended in a draw, when Ya Ling met Toph at their final battle, she was determined to win. With every blow, Ya Ling got more fierce, and Toph had to adapt her bending style to keep up. She discovered she could effectively bend metal cables as a weapon, nearly getting the upper hand. Ya Ling had studied Toph's fighting techniques, however, and used her own earthbending forms against her. Toph was down for the count, and Ya Ling was prepared to end it right there. Fortunately, Toph was better at making friends and knew not to underestimate a non-bender, especially one with a boomerang. A few days later, benders and non-benders were united again in a common goal. They were going to rebuild their home together. Team Avatar decided to settle down in Fishtown that day and would eventually help in its formation into Republic City. As Toph grew up, she later took charge of the city's law enforcement and started an elite metal-bending police force to help keep the growing population safe. Toph became chief of police, but shortly into her career, she met a man named Kanto with whom she had a daughter named Lin. While Toph and Kanto didn't last as a couple, Toph would end up giving birth to another daughter named Su Yin. Needless to say, Toph was confident as a single parent and gave her daughters much more freedom than she ever got. At age 40, while leading the arrest of a gangster named Yukon, Toph ran into her favorite airbender.
But if what those victims said is true, we're not dealing with a normal criminal.
Fine. Follow me, Twinkle Toes.
Toph initially brushed off Aang's concerns and easily took Yukon into custody. Right after he was found guilty, however, the gangster revealed that he was a blood-bending master. He forced Toph to uncuff him and tossed her away like a rag doll to make his escape. Aang eventually defeated the bloodbender, but the threats that faced Republic City were growing by the day. About a decade later, we would learn that Toph's daughters inherited her mastery of earthbending. Lin followed her mother's footsteps and became a full-fledged Republic City police officer. And one day on patrol, she caught her sister Su Yin participating in a gang robbery.
Sue?
When Toph found out Lin arrested Su Yin, she brought the siblings into her office alone.
And what were you thinking? You two have put me in an impossible position.
It would have been a massive scandal if Republic City found out their police chief had a daughter in prison. So, Toph did the only thing she could and destroyed Lin's police report and sent her rebellious daughter to live with her grandparents. Su Yin would later travel the world, eventually founding the metal city of Zaofu, and reconciled with Toph after she retired. Lin actually ended up taking her old job as police chief, but the two were unable to resolve their differences before Toph left Republic City in search of enlightenment. Many years passed until Toph was seen again, this time by the next avatar, Korra.
I can't believe it.
Toph was the first person to notice that the reason Korra was feeling weak was that she still had remnants of metal poison in her body from when the Red Lotus attacked her.
Are you trying to tell me you can't feel metal in your own body? You really are the worst avatar ever.
Toph tried to heal her, but knew the only way to help Korra was to allow her to save herself.
Release the fear.
After being led through a painful vision, Korra metal bent the remaining poison out by herself and found the strength to fight again.
Well done, Korra.
Toph only got a short break before she learned her daughter Su Yin and her family had been captured in Zaofu. The former chief of police then made a long overdue reunion with her daughter Lin to launch a full-scale rescue mission.
Hey, Chief.
Hey, Chief.
After some close calls, the Beifong family escaped, and Toph, using a massive seismic wave, managed to save Lin, Su Yin, and her grandsons from Kuvira's forces at the last possible moment.
You give metalbenders a bad name!
When they got to safety, Toph told Lin how proud she was to be her mother, and the two finally reconciled. 3 months after Kuvira's surrender, Toph was relaxing back in her swamp when she was visited by Korra and Earth King Wu, who asked her to run for governor against a dictator. Toph initially refused, but per her usual track record, she ended up fighting side by side with 3 generations of Beifongs to take down another radical army. After the fight, Earth King Wu tried to convince Toph to stay around as governor, but she refused. Sticking to her ideals, Toph went back to retirement in the swamp, simply stating that the predators there were more honest than in politics. From a blind bandit, a teacher to 2 avatars, a war hero, and matriarch of the entire Beifong family, Toph's legacy spanned generations and throughout the world. But what do you think? Is she the greatest earthbender of all time? Comment below and keep watching for more of your favorite Avatar moments.